House Oversight Committee Chairman Jason Chaffetz is back at work, and he is seeking a review by a U.S. attorney amidst new calls for an independent investigation of Hillary Clinton's email deletions. Congressman Chaffetz claiming that there is evidence that someone tried to block a congressional investigation by destroying evidence amounting to obstruction of justice, he says. Mr. Chaffetz points out that the company that maintained Clinton's private server deleted an archive of her email despite preservation orders and a subpoena from Congress, which is clearly troubling. Joined now by Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, who is a Republican on the Oversight and Government Committee, Reform Committee as well, of course, and he's chairman of the House Freedom Caucus. Good to have you with us today, Congressman. Welcome.
Welcome. Good to be with you, Martha.
You know, I think a lot of people are sort of in two camps. Some people believe that this is over, that when Jim Comey stood up and said we didn't find any reason to indict, that ended this issue. And others, like Congressman Chaffetz and yourself, no doubt, believe that there needs to be accountability here. So what will you do at this point?
You got to keep digging, because what we just learned is, you remember when Clinton, Secretary Clinton said, when asked if she wiped these devices clean or erased anything, she said, what, you mean with a cloth? We now know it wasn't a cloth, it was a hammer and it was bleach bit. And the timeline that the chairman points out in his letter to Platte River Network shows this. We learn in early March, New York Times reports that she had a separate server. Preservation orders, subpoenas put in place. After those two things are put in place, documents are destroyed, and they're destroyed by someone who we don't even know his name. It was redacted. Someone at Platte River Networks, it was redacted in what we got from the FBI. And the destruction also, and this is interesting, the destruction takes place after a conference call between Secretary Clinton's legal team, David Kendall, Cheryl Mills, and Platte River Networks. Sometime after that conference call, information is destroyed that is under subpoena and under a preservation order. That calls for more investigation, more looking into this, because that is just absolutely wrong.
Yeah, well, it seems a number of entities have decided to drop this, including the FBI, and Congress is doggedly determined, at least you folks are, to continue digging here. Here's what Hillary Clinton said when she was asked about this, Congressman. Let's watch.
I'd been on the Senate Armed Services Committee for years before I was Secretary of State. I take classification seriously. The fact I couldn't remember certain meetings, whether or not they had occurred, doesn't in any way affect the commitment that I had and still have to the treatment of classified material.
Your response to that?
Well, if she takes it seriously, how did she not even know that C stood for classification, something that's classified versus just a letter in the alphabet? I mean, come on. Everyone knows she didn't take it that seriously based on what we've discovered, all the classified emails sent, all the emails that were work-related. Remember, she testified to me in the Benghazi hearing last October that she had turned over every work-related email, and they erred on the side of being inclusive and turning over to the government as much as they could. We know that's not true. There are 17,000 work-related emails that the FBI discovered were not returned to the taxpayer, to the government. So here's the other interesting thing, Martha, I think from this latest we've learned from the FBI. We now have two individuals who've taken the fifth. We knew Brian Pagliano took the fifth in front of the Benghazi committee last year. He's the guy who set up her server situation, who worked for the State Department. We now have a guy on the other side of the equation who worked in the private sector, who worked for Platte River Network, who also took the fifth. Now, we don't know his name. It was redacted, but he asserted his privilege as well and would not answer the question about, after that conference call with Clinton's legal team, and then did he destroy the document? So he wouldn't answer those questions. He refused to. So we now have two people who were directly tied to this email situation, server situation, who've taken the fifth, one for the government and one for Platte River Network. I think that's telling as well.
Yeah, but how are you going to move through this process? I mean, what's your next step, and do you think you're going to get anywhere?
We need to know who this guy is from Platte River Network. We need to know what his name is, what privilege. We assume he asserted his Fifth Amendment privilege. We don't know, but he asserted some privilege. We need to know who he is. We need to depose him. We need to bring him in. Maybe he'll assert some privilege again, maybe his Fifth Amendment privilege in front of us, but we need to know who he is, and we need to bring him in front of the committee.
Yeah. And there's so many contradictory statements. I keep going back to the fact and remembering the day that Hillary Clinton stood before the cameras and she said, I had one BlackBerry for convenience. I know that was a mistake, but I had one BlackBerry. I did that for convenience. You now find out that she had 13 BlackBerries and that they were destroyed either through bleach bit or with hammers. I mean, it just paints an entirely different picture that she really has not answered that question.
It wasn't cloth, it was a hammer and it was bleach bit. 13 devices. She said she had one. One of the many false statements she made. Some of those false statements she made under oath in front of a congressional committee last October. That's what's so important. That's why we have to get to the bottom of this. No other American could get away with this. And just because you're Secretary of State, major nominee for president, former First Lady, former senator, you shouldn't get away with it either.
Yeah, I mean, the FBI has said that she didn't make any comments that they believed, were inconsistent, and yet that is just so hard to believe, given what they released on Friday from these notes from this interview. So a lot of big questions still out there, and you guys are trying to track them down. Thank you very much, Congressman. Good to have you with us today.
You bet. Thank you, Martha. Take care.